Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 32, Euthyphro 2b to d. Euthyphro had just asked if Socrates also had a dike like he had, and Socrates says, no, Athenians say that what he has is a graphe. That Socrates says Athenians and not we suggests that Socrates doesn't regard Euthyphro as a typical Athenian. If this is the case, Euthyphro ignores it because he's surprised that Socrates has a graphe at all. Tifes graphein setis hos oikege graptai, ugarike noge katagnosomai hosu heteron, ugar un. What are you saying? Someone has written you a writ, so it seems, for I wouldn't accuse you of that you would write a writ against someone else. Of course not. Euthyphro could have said that he doesn't believe that Socrates would issue a writ against someone else, but he wittily says that he won't accuse him of it. Even if this is a joke, we may understand that Euthyphro wouldn't accuse someone without justification. He carries on, Allah se alos panunke. But against you, someone else, quite. In other words, somebody, on behalf of the entire polis, has accused Socrates of some sort of crime, which we already know is an offense to the gods. This hutos, who's this person? Udautos panuti gignosko o Euthyphron ton andra, neoskartis moi fainitai, kai agnos onomadzus imento auton hosegomai, Meleton, estide ton demon pithius, eitinano eches pithea Meleton, hoion tetanotricha kai upanu eugeneon epigruponde. Even I, Euthyphro, don't really know the man, for he seems to me someone young and unknown. But they call him, so I think, Meletus. And of the demes, he's a Pythian. The Greek says Pythius, but we need an adjective in English. If you have in mind some Pythian Meletus, who's a sort of long-haired, not very well-grown, bearded, hook-nosed person. Socrates began by saying he didn't know the man, and then he goes into quite some detail, at least external detail. He doesn't necessarily know the soul of the man, but he knows what he looks like. Socrates mentioned that Meletus is of the deme Pythis, so I should clarify the various uses of the term demos in Athens. In the period we're dealing with, around 399 BC, the demos was the body politic, all of the citizens of Athens, who controlled themselves, and that gave us the word demokratia, democracy, from demos and kratos. The ia suffix shows that the two words have become one word, demokratia. In the last episode, I mentioned the 10 artificial tribes. Each of the tribes was made up of 3 areas, 1 coastal, 1 city, and 1 inland, in an attempt to ensure equality in this democratic regime. Each of the 30 areas was composed of smaller regions, smaller settlements, neighborhoods, suburbs, which were called demoi. The word demos goes back to Homeric Greek, where it denotes any sort of region. In Attica, there were around 140 demoi. That Socrates knew the deme of Meletus may be ascribed to the name appearing on the writ, and there's no need to assume that Socrates knows everything about everyone in Attica. I should note that Socrates, Euthyphro, and Meletus are from different demes. Socrates described Meletus as if this would help Euthyphro decide whether he knew who Meletus was or not. Anyway, Euthyphro doesn't know him. This is how he answers. Ukeno o Socrates, alade tina graphen sege graptai. I don't have him in mind, Socrates, but what graphe has he written you? Euthyphro clearly isn't all that interested in Meletus as a person, and he goes straight on to ask about the writ itself. Socrates obliges. Hein tina, uk agene moigitoke. You ask what writ? Not ignoble, to me it seems. Dogar neon onta, tosuton pragma egnokenai ufaulonestin. For someone being young, knowing such a great matter is no mean thing. Ekenos gar hos fesin, oide tinetropon hoi ne oi dieptherontai, kai tines hoi dieptheron tesautus. For that person, so he says, knows in what way the young are being corrupted, and who the people are who are corrupting them. Corrupting the youth was one of the two charges against Socrates. We should be careful to distinguish between reality and this drama. So far as this drama is concerned, Socrates says that Meletus says that he knows in what way the youth are corrupted and who are the people corrupting them. And we should bear in mind that Socrates represents for Meletus a group of people who corrupt the youth in a certain way. Even without comparing this with other sources, we may guess that Meletus has in mind the sophists, and he considers Socrates to be a sophist. Socrates continues, Kai kintonue sophostis enai, kai ten emena mathian katidon hos diaptheron tus helikiotas autu, ergetai kategoreson mu hosper prosmetera prosten polin. And he happens to be some expert, and he is going to the polis, as if to mother, in order to accuse me of corrupting his peers, people of the same age. Socrates says that Meletus knows in what way the youth are being corrupted, but he doesn't actually go into detail about that. How can the youth be corrupted? Some people at the time thought that sophists corrupted the youth because they challenged traditional views and they made the young question their elders. It's interesting that Socrates presents Meletus as some sort of expert, while he himself, who Meletus would think is a sophist, Socrates himself portrays himself as lacking education, and it is the lack of education which he's passing on to the youth. He's corrupting them from knowledge, from being experts, to being idiots like himself. Meletus is not corrupted, and he has some sort of expertise, and therefore he's in a position to prosecute Socrates. Given that Socrates was eventually found guilty, we may see Meletus as representing those Athenians who regard themselves as somehow experts, at least on matters concerning offences against the gods. On the other hand, Socrates emphasizes how young Meletus is. He's relatively unknown, his beard isn't fully grown, and he goes running to mother at the first sign of trouble. We need to bear in mind that Socrates is saying all of this to Euthyphro. On the one hand, he's setting up Meletus as an expert, and on the other hand, he's allowing Euthyphro to realize that Meletus can't possibly be that sort of expert. He's still young. We may be given to understand that Euthyphro is much older. By the way, Socrates is even older. He's around 70 at the time of this conversation. Socrates carries on building up the character of Meletus. Kai phaenetai moi ton politikon monos archestai orthos. And he seems to me to be the only one of the politikoi to begin correctly. It might be tempting to translate politikos as politician, but politikos just means someone connected somehow with the polis, someone who's interested in the affairs of the polis. This is not a modern politician who is interested in his own career at the expense of everybody else. A politikos is interested in benefiting the polis. Especially here, Socrates is presenting Meletus as someone who's concerned with the polis. So what does Socrates mean by beginning correctly? He goes on, Orthos gar esti ton neon proton epimelethenai hopos esontai hoti aristoi, hosper georgon agathon ton neon futon ekos proton epimelethenai, metade tuto kai ton alon. For it is beginning correctly to care first of all for the young so that they will be as good as possible, just as it is fitting for a good farmer to care first for the young plants, and after this also the others. The example from agriculture is for the benefit of Euthyphro, who is a farmer, as we will see in a future episode. You don't have to be much of a farmer to know that the example Socrates has given is a bit strange. A farmer usually sows a field in spring, and then the plants grow, and they're all at the same age. You don't have younger plants and older plants, at least not in the same field. And a farmer will look after all of his plants equally. But Socrates gives a more sinister tone to his example in the next sentence. Kaide kai meletos isos proton men heimas ekathaire tuston neontas plastas diaptherontas hosvesin. More than that, Meletus is perhaps weeding out us, the ones corrupting, so he says, the shoots of the young. This actually makes more sense than the previous example. A farmer doesn't look after different age groups within the same crop, but if we regard the young as the young shoots and the old as either much bigger plants smothering the young or as weeds, then the old are in some way depriving the young of space, light, oxygen, nutriments, and of course they should be got rid of. The only problem here is that Meletus is prosecuting only Socrates, but I suppose you have to start somewhere.